Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Calhoun's. Are you getting together to watch football in the coming weekends? Then bring home a Calhoun's party platter. They got the boneless wing platter, wet wings platter, naked wings platter, ribs, chicken tenders, all of these great platters that you can order up. They feed 8 to 10 people. If you got a party, use the party platter from Calhoun's. You don't have to cook. Don't cook. Let Calhoun's do the cooking. Feed a whole crew. Watch the games. Calhoun's. All right. Want to welcome in the next member of our group today, Mr. Mark Pankratz, former Vol assistant coach under Bruce Pearl and Conzo Martin. Thanks for joining us. Good to talk about a victory.
Yes, sir.
And I got to be honest, I did not have the Tennessee Vandy segment number 2 as of 7 o'clock yesterday. That changed. This team had lost 3 in a row. They had booted Dietrich Mostella. Things looked to be going in the wrong direction. And then as you tweeted yesterday, it's hard to tell when a team's going to show up with urgency and when they aren't. They showed up with urgency yesterday. Mark, your thoughts on Tennessee's big win? Bryce Drew sat in that zone for most of the game, and UT picked it apart.
It was, especially the way we played against South Carolina, how ugly it was, all those turnovers. And not many people were wanting to tune into that game last night, but it was the old veteran coach versus the young coach. Our schematics ended up winning. They stayed in zone. We knocked down shots, but defensively, we were switching defensively. We played with great urgency. We didn't turn the ball over, only having 6 turnovers. We brought it to them, whereas Vanderbilt, because of their lack of depth, their lack of toughness, Tennessee was able to manhandle them most of the game.
Guys, as Mark mentioned, 6 turnovers. They had committed 41 in the previous 2 games, 6 last night. They shot 58.6% from the floor, shot 53.3% from three-point range, and Jordan Bone had a career-high 23 points. Quickly, your thoughts on Tennessee's win at Vanderbilt?
Well, I think the 6 turnovers were a result of what Mark was saying. They were in the zone. You don't have as many turnovers when they're playing what I thought was a pretty passive zone. The other thing is, I thought against South Carolina, I would have argued that only one player had a decent game, and that was Grant Williams. Against Vanderbilt, I think 5 players either were decent to great. I thought Jordan Bone was exceptional, and they shot very well. And so when you got 5 players playing well, which Tennessee did against Vanderbilt, I think Tennessee can be a tough out for people.
And the competition has to be considered of the last week and a half. Florida and South Carolina right now are NCAA tournament teams. If it were to happen today, Vanderbilt's not close to that level. So part of the credit does have to go to South Carolina. It was an ugly game on both sides, but South Carolina is an elite defensive team the way that it's playing right now. And Jordan Bone, his performance against Vanderbilt, how much that helped, and then his struggles against South Carolina, that shows moving forward. You project with the basketball program how important he's going to be.
You still look at, even though Vanderbilt isn't as good as South Carolina and Florida, the whole home road thing in basketball, evens that out a little bit. Mike Strange, you've covered a lot of Tennessee teams, good, bad, that have struggled at Vanderbilt. Your thoughts on their performance last night over there in Memorial Gym?
I thought they won the game not because Vanderbilt played bad, but because Tennessee played good. I mean, Vandy shot the ball pretty well. Vandy's not a good defensive team. They can't put the kind of pressure on you that South Carolina does to get you out of what you want to do. But still, Tennessee won that game because they played well, not because Vandy played bad.
And I think part of it was, too, and this is the excitement moving forward for this ball club, Vanderbilt had maybe 7 guys that they could count on. Tennessee played 11 guys. And our pressure, we're undersized. And Coach Barnes, what he did is he worked them up full court, got them out of their half-court offense and being able to knock down 3-point shots. And it was our depth that by the end of it, we did have a lot of guys step up, and then we wore them down.
Where does this team go from here? Again, if you'd asked me that after South Carolina, I would have been saying downhill, because this team had challenges to begin with. You take Fulkerson away. Then you take Mostella away, who's averaging 10 points. I didn't see this team then going to Vanderbilt and winning the way they did. Basketball's up and down. It's crazy. They could go and play terribly at Ole Miss. We'll talk about that a little later in this game, and later in the show. But where do you see this team overall? They're still ahead of Auburn, which is a surprise, Ole Miss, LSU, Texas A&M, and Missouri in the SEC. Now, you're not at the top of the league, but you were picked for 13th. So you got 5 teams behind you right now. We said earlier this team may be able to work its way into the middle of the pack in the SEC. Take Mostella out. Do you still think that's possible?
I still do, because I think the yin and the yang of Mostella, where he does really good stuff and then defensively, or he turns the ball over, he takes away from you. I think we'll keep trekking forward because of Jordan Bone, because that is the guy they all talk about that Coach Barnes is the hardest on. He takes the criticism, and he then can go out on the floor, and if he can keep his wits about him and keep his head and keep his focus, that's gonna trickle down to these other players. And I think because Jordan Bone can take it, we'll keep moving forward.
And I think Tennessee will struggle against really good physical defensive teams like South Carolina. They'll also struggle at Kentucky, everybody does. But you take out those extraordinarily talented team or a very physical defensive team, I think Tennessee can play with anybody in the SEC other than those type of teams.
Which gets back to what Mark was talking about in terms of looking forward to the future. A lot of people have been down on Rick Barnes and his recruiting, and certainly there are questions about the recruiting right now. But nobody was jumping up and down and shaking shakers when these current guys were signed. And they're looking pretty good in terms of what you have for building blocks moving forward with the program. Mark, we'll have you back a little bit later in the show. I know you got a scouting report for Ole Miss for us, and I look forward to talking to you about that. When we come back, still to come, we're going to project UT's staff for 2017, the football staff. Going to do that. But next, Tennessee is projected to be in the national rankings, top 25 next year. 3 different polls, early. You surprised by that? We are. Come on back.